And you know how crazy it is that religion has convinced us not to worship what actually gives us life and calls us to label the worship of the natural world animistic, savage, or primitive? Well, then turning around and selling you a story that is more denied than it can be confirmed has been retold and rewritten more times than any of us can count and involve plots that are seemingly impossible. But if you say these things, you're the problem. Like, there's a certain level of delusion you have to have to even be religious. And no, it's not faith. Because real faith in something doesn't only drive you to said thing because you need to cope with the world around you. And that's exactly what religion does. It gives lazy people an avenue to cope with the world around them. And then that religion demonizes the world around them. The same world that gives them life, air, breath, food, existence, in the same world that past societies would worship and thank for even things like rain. Religion disconnects humanity from what is natural through unnatural stories, unnatural beliefs, and unnatural practices to make humans look down on and advocate for the destruction of the natural world. Religion is anti-life. That's why they'll center figures that happen to resurrect. They centralize these figures because they represent the antithesis of what religion actually praises and causes, which is death. Death of its followers, death in the wars created behind it, and death of Earth due to the lessened importance of our natural world that is taught and furthered through it.
Atheist, what are you going to say when you stand in front of God?
Why did you stay hidden? Why did you stay silent? Why did you demand faith instead of providing evidence? Why did you reveal yourself in a book full of historical inaccuracies and theological contradictions? If you knew that the vast majority of humans you created would end up in hell, why did you create them? Why did you create hell? How is infinite punishment justice for a finite crime? What is the point of torturing someone in hell if they can never get out of it and never learn? Why would you purposely tempt Adam and Eve? Did you want them to fail? I mean, when I had children, I baby-proofed my house. I didn't light a fire in the middle of the living room and tell them not to get close to it. Why didn't you condemn slavery? Why did you create rules explaining to humans how you wanted them to conduct their slave trade? Why are there only 10 commandments? Why did you think keeping the Sabbath day holy was more important to include than not graping people? Did you think it was more important to tell children they needed to respect and obey their parents instead of telling parents not to abuse their children? Why did you make it possible for humans to physically hurt each other? You didn't give us unlimited abilities. I can't just spread my wings and fly. You chose not to give us wings. Why choose to make it possible for priests to children? How could you watch that happen in your churches, by your servants, and do nothing? Why do you treat people like they're expendable background characters in other people's story? In trying to test Job, you allow his children to die, as though they're not people in and of themselves. Why do you think that giving Job more children later makes up for killing his first? Why do you demand love? Why do you demand worship? Why can you not offer forgiveness freely? Why do you demand human sacrifice? Why do you demand perfection from humans that you acknowledge are incapable of achieving it? Why would you punish people for not achieving something that they're not capable of achieving? When a school fails, we blame administrators. When a war fails, we blame generals. When a country fails, we blame its leaders. If this earthly system that you conceived of and ultimately created has failed so badly that you have no other option but to destroy it with fire, how is it our fault? Why do you blame your failed creation? And if you really wanted me to believe that you exist, to trust that you are good, and to be inspired to follow you so that one day I can be the best, most loving version of myself, then why on earth would you send this follower of yours to my page to tell me that he is looking forward to the day I end up in hell? How on earth would that ever win me over?
What the fuck is going on in here on this day?
Stop arguing with Christians. It is not a part of their programming to wake up. And truthfully, it's better off that some of them do not. Because without religion, a lot of people's moral compass are non-existent. If they are supposed to wake up this lifetime, they will. But you can't force anyone's eyes to be open. The best thing you can do is continue to be the light. And also empathize, because a lot of us used to run on that same programming.
They're going to give you these little, petty remarks. So that's why you didn't get that. And that's why you didn't do this. And that's why this didn't go your way. Because you over here, you turning your back on God. That's the devil. The devil be doing this. And I know you don't want to hear it. And I know it's upsetting to hear. It's frustrating to hear because you feel like you're not being heard. You're not being understood. You're being gaslighted 24/7. You're trying to tell them your experience, but they're trying to push back on your experiences and the knowledge and information you've been given and the understanding and awareness that you've been given. And they're trying to push back on that with the Bible and all these religious, excuses, all the BS that they try to feed you. And you're trying to, speak to them casually with respect, and they're not respecting you. So it's just even more frustrating. People will start to cut you off. You don't want to ruin relationships with family members, with friends, so it gets to a point where like you're scared to be a rebel. You're scared to be the adversary, stand out from the crowd, stand out from your family. But it has to come to a point in life where you just can't suppress yourself for them, because it gets to a point to where you start to suppress your own happiness. You start to suppress your own love for yourself. You start to suppress who you truly can be in life. And you have to ask yourself, are you going to continue to suppress yourself for people who are going to stay complacent?
If there was an entity that was responsible for the beginning of the cosmos, and that also happened to be busily engineering the very laborious production of life on our little planet, it still wouldn't prove that this entity cared about us, answered prayers, cared what church we went to, or whether we went to one at all, cared who we had sex with, or in what position, or by what means, cared what we ate or on what day, cared whether we lived or died. There's no reason at all why this entity isn't completely indifferent to us. You cannot get from deism to theism except by a series of extraordinarily generous to yourself assumptions. The deist has all his work still ahead of him to show that it leads to revelation, to redemption, to salvation, or to suspensions of the natural order, in which hitherto you've been putting all your faith, all your evidence is on scientific and natural evidence, or why not, for a change of pace and a change of taste, say yes, but sometimes this same natural order, which is so miraculous in observation, no question about it, is so impressive in its favoring the conditions for life in some ways, but it's randomly suspended when miracles are required. So with caprice and contempt, these laws turn out not to be so important after all, as long as the truth of religion can be proved by their being rendered inoperative. This is having it both ways in the most promiscuous and exorbitant manner in my submission. Bear in mind also that these are not precisely the differences between Dr. Craig and myself, morally or intellectually equivalent claims. After all, Dr. Craig, to win this argument, has to believe and prove to a certainty. He's not just saying there might be a God, because he has to say there must be one, otherwise we couldn't be here and there couldn't be morality. It's not a contingency for him. I have to say that I appear as a skeptic who believes that doubt is the great engine, the great fuel of all inquiry, all discovery, and all innovation, and that I doubt these things. The disadvantage, it seems to me, in the argument goes to the person who says, no, I know it, it must be true, it is true. We're too early in the study of physics and biology, it seems to me, to be dealing in certainties of that kind, especially when the stakes are so high. It seems to me, to put it in a condensed form, extraordinary claims, such as the existence of a divine power with a son who cares enough to come and redeem us, extraordinary claims require truly extraordinary evidence. I don't think any of the evidence we heard from Dr. Craig, brilliantly marshaled as it was extraordinary enough to justify the extreme claims that are being made and backed by it.
Religious people love to say God don't make no mistakes. Explain that rainbow then in Genesis. Ain't nothing too hard for God. Then what the devil doing here? And why God ain't killed him? You know, Jesus died for everybody's sin and he paid the price. So why we gotta repent? How come we still sinning? You gonna be left behind when the rapture come. Well, I hope so. Because according to your book, it says, woe to those who were left behind, but more woe to those who were taken. I don't want to be taken. Lucifer fell from heaven because he wanted to be like God. Like, isn't that the whole plan? He didn't want to bow down and worship man. Ain't that the plan? Something in that milk ain't clean.
The kind of forgiveness the church wants you to possess, the forgiveness that you have to do 70 times 7 times, that kind of forgiveness is what will keep you abused. That kind of forgiveness is what will keep you oppressed. That kind of forgiveness is what will keep giving your oppressors and your abusers leverage over you to always come back and do it again and get forgiven and get away with it. That is the kind of forgiveness that the church wants you, the Bible wants you, the God yourself wants you to possess. And to that, I say no. I say never. Never will I forgive anybody that has hurt me 70 times 7 times. Never will I. Never will I forgive anybody that has constantly taken it upon themselves to not respect me or my boundaries 70 times 7 times. Never will I do that. And this is why I don't like the Bible. Because it doesn't tally with our reality. The people now that have written this thing, that you should go and be forgiving somebody that's hurt you 70 times 7 times, they will not be there when that abusive partner of yours keeps beating you up 70 times 7 times. They will not be there when you may probably lose your life or end up in a lifelong disability at the 60th time of you forgiving them. They will not be there. They will not be there when that rapist comes to rape you 70 times 7 times. They will not be there when that abusive elder brother or that abusive uncle of yours or that abusive friend or acquaintance of yours comes to brutalize and beat you up 70 times 7 times, just because you will keep forgiving them 70 times 7 times. So they will always have that leverage to come and do it again and be guaranteed of forgiveness. That is the kind of forgiveness the Bible wants you to possess. That kind of forgiveness is what will see you to your early grave. The people that have hurt you, you mustn't forgive them. You can move on with your life. You can keep them in the past where they belong, but you must not forgive them. Forgiveness is overrated. Forgiveness makes you to break the walls around you that you're supposed to build around you to guard yourself from these people. That is what forgiveness does. And the cherry on top is that the God that has told you to forgive the people that keep hurting you 70 times 7 times is the God that forgave the devil never. The minute the devil tried to take over his kingdom, he casted him down. Up till today, he hasn't forgiven the devil. They have not squashed their beef. But if you get gripped and go to the church, they are going to cancel you into forgiveness because the Bible has told you to forgive 70 times 7 times. Go ahead and keep forgiving 70 times 7 times. Remain oppressed, remain abused, and remain prone to your abusers 70 times 7 times.
And you better keep fucking going.